without that, we're just stating a problem, but I don't know who this is a problem for. Why did you use this type of survey? What did it tell you? And then how did you use that to inform your next step? I think that would be a really great piece of information that was missing for me. How did you use that to inform what you were going to do next in your process? Not just that you were following a checklist of like, I did this and this and this, but that you were thinking about why you're doing each of those things and that it's facilitating your design decisions. Those key details about why you're doing that need to be called out. If someone's thinking is good and they're telling me how they think as a product designer, that's almost more important. Yeah, so do you want top to bottom, whole thing?
Whatever works for you.
Yeah, let's do it.
If you want to do bottom
All right,
to top.
yeah, so bottom to top. We're going top to bottom. Starting at the hierarchy and the layout of the type there, I think like consistency throughout. Really coming up with like sizes for like really consistency across like the titles or subheaders. Yeah, so like the mobile application versus like the description of what this was, and the description was actually the biggest thing on the link that you just clicked to get to this project even, so those have been flipped. But moving on down, I don't have a problem with people just giving like basic project facts. I think that's totally fine to give a bit of context, but scooting on past that, I thought that this part was a little interesting, and maybe it goes back to the personas thing, but instead of just stating a problem and a goal, I really would like to start framing it as like, what are the audience, like who is the audience? First of all, like who are the people who are going to be coming to this, and what are some of their like potential needs? We don't even need to be specific or combine into this perfect persona, right? It's just, what are the needs of people who have dogs, right? They're going to take them for walks. Well, what are some issues there? It's like, it's not everywhere can you bring a dog. Some places are leash, some places are off leash. So like, those are the kinds of things that you could be setting up to really describe the problem a little bit better in terms of like, who's going to be using this? What are their specific needs? Because without that, we're just stating a problem, but I don't know who this is a problem for, or what it's trying to help them solve. So I think just the reframing of that, and we're going to see this as a consistent theme, which is like scannability. I've got 5 or 10 minutes to look at a case study at most, and if it's super long, I want to be able to understand each section, see some highlights pulled out in a way that like the hierarchy can help support. So like, for example, getting into research insights, like really in big pull quotes, and maybe we're talking about the cool Figma feature that released it, right? How do you make it stand out from the rest of the text? How do you really quickly let me know what are your common themes and pain points that you found? I want to know like top 3 or 4 across all these things that I can read in like a single sentence, or even a sentence that combines like, what we found was this and this and this, and it's that simple to talk about. And then something that I mentioned before was like what I wouldn't do, how would I not get hired, and it's like not to talk about why. So this was very much like here's the activities that I did, but there's so many different research methodologies, and there's so many different design exercises or like brainstorming exercises that you could run. So like from your research or what you found, why did you ask those questions? Why did you use this type of survey? What did it tell you? And then how did you use that to inform your next step? I think that would be a really great like piece of information that was missing for me. It was like, how did you use that to inform what you were going to do next in your process? Not just that you were following a checklist of like, I did this and this and this, but that you were thinking about why you're doing each of those things, and that it's facilitating some kind of information that you needed to move on to get clarity with your design decisions. So we can keep going down past research insights. I thought that, the persona, again, it looked like it was maybe based on about 17 different interviews, which is at least getting up there in numbers, not just like 2 or 3 people, but
no, it's surveys.
Okay, so yeah. Again, like this is where like I think switching back to just thinking about who is your potential audience, basic facts, like is this for someone with dogs or not dogs, right? I think some basic facts that are clear and true you can start with to kind of avoid this problem of a fuzzy persona that's not really telling you anything but taking your time to create. And then skipping down to the wireframes, again, I would have loved to see like, okay, what made you feel confident to move on? And then what are you trying to solve here? Because we really quickly moved from medium fidelity wireframes to like branding and ideation and then a prototype. But I wasn't exactly sure what was actually changing between all of those things, other than like the fidelity. Did any of the actual UX, the experience change, or was this just like a visual fidelity iteration or pass? And so I think that being more clear, and again, maybe it could be in there, but given like 5 minutes to read, those key details about why you're doing that need to be called out. Was there something that you like? Did you test a wireframe or paper prototype early and it wasn't good enough, or people didn't have enough detail, so you needed to bump it up in fidelity so that it could connect with the with the app that you're trying to get them to test? Like that would be a valid reason for like moving up in fidelity, but like just the understanding of how and why those things are happening, I think would be super helpful. Again, back to the usability testing's key findings. I thought this one, like, it makes sense. You've kind of got early research and then usability testing for the app, but pulling those things out and like really just very, very high level summary. Bullet points are great, but there's no use of hierarchy, so it's just scanning it. I've got to read it top to bottom because otherwise I'm going to miss one of the key pieces of information, but it probably could have been said in about half as many words. And then in the iteration section, I think this was iterations based on the usability testing, but it didn't really give context again for why, like what these are iterations of or why. I thought the format was a little hard to consume just by being spaced out like this. That feels like a cover image if you want to show like a hero shot, like at the top or something, but I didn't think that it helped me really understand what the iteration actually was. I think a comparison or even side-by-side calling out what changed could be pretty helpful. And also the spacing is just off. The spacing is right. We went to like an interesting 2x grid, but it's all like skewed to the left, just the way that it's arranged. So, and then it just jumped into kind of some screens about the final version and the click through prototype. So, not too much to talk about there unless I go into the specifics. But given our time, I think that's like how I would assess the overall layout and content. And honestly, sometimes even an app that's in a rough state visually, if someone's thinking is good and they're telling me how they think as a product designer, that's almost more important, because like the tangible hard skills, easy to work on and improve, right? Figuring out how to get better at like visual hierarchy and typefaces and color choices, pretty easy. But understanding how to break down a problem and think and your methodologies and when you use them or not, to me, that's critical. So that's why I focus on that.
Yeah, that's such a good call out, John. This is one thing that we focus on in our programs with all of our students, is understanding the why behind your decisions. So you have a reason for doing it, and it is like a treasure map. Basically, you start with what information you currently know and what you need to find out, and then you go about finding out that next thing, and then you're going to inevitably have more questions, which is going to force you into the next decision, and then you keep doing that, and eventually you'll end up at a solution. But it's always basing your next decision on what you currently know and what you need to find out. And so, like, if you just keep doing that over and over, you'll get there. UX is like 100% at its core a critical thinking process.
100%.
Ludovic, what are your thoughts, my friend?
I don't know what I think. I think she did a pretty good job, considering the fact that this is a bootcamp portfolio, and it looks like she has a ton of case studies that we've not looked at, and this is just one of them. Considering the sheer amount of case studies that she created, I'm kind of impressed with the structure and the visuals. It's like it comes off as it's someone who learned UX recently, yet that has some skills that can quickly ramp up. It's not like it's someone who's going to take forever to learn at the job. So at least that gives me a sense of overall quality that is higher than in most other bootcamp portfolios that I've seen. But having said that, though, there are a lot of pointers that make me feel like, yeah, for sure, there is some inherent quality in it that I can observe at a glance, yet it's missing a lot of that, the glue between each section. Why did I go from there to there? It feels like the problem statement just below that, the section just below. the small little section is not really. It doesn't feel like it's a real problem that people will actually download an app for. If they wanted to go on a hike, would they think, they just wanted to look for dog-friendly app, would they really go on the app store and struggle through millions of apps and try to find something for that specific problem? I don't know. I mean, I'm not entirely convinced. At least, I don't know, in Washington State, we have this data pretty easily. It's easily findable on the web. I think the web would be just fine for a problem like this. And so it makes me feel like this problem was created out of almost like a gut feel rather than actual research. And so it's kind of creating that kind of shaky situation where I'm like, well, if the problem statement isn't 100% solid and I feel like it's more just a gut feel, then I'm like, even though everything else is quality, I'm like, I kind of doubt that it has a solid grounds, right? But then other than that, I mean, yeah, I would definitely remove the user persona because it's just from a few user surveys. I know some hiring managers want to see that, but I don't know if they know what they're talking about, if that's the case.
Keep it for the appendix. That's the way we see it. It's like, you don't have to get rid of it entirely, just keep it for the appendix.
Yeah, keep it for the appendix. But yeah, like when I'm looking at the medium fidelity wireframes, they look fine. I mean, they're not black and white, first of all, but they look like, they're done with care, and I've seen so much worse on many portfolios out there. So yes, it's just a medium fidelity wireframe, but I see that Cara is good at a craft, especially as a beginner, right? But I'm missing that glue between like, how did you get there? Why did you need to get to that medium fidelity wireframe so fast, just based on that initial problem that we don't even think is a problem, according to a hiring manager, right? And so I have a lot of question marks as to how she bounced from one section to another, and I wish we had more of the why behind each decision, rather than just a few sections explaining the what. It's fine to have the what, but I would intersect way more why everywhere. But yeah, so that's why I feel a bit conflicted. I think she has tremendous amount of potential, and I can totally see it. And I don't think she's there to blame at all, because like a lot of bootcamps just teach the UX process in such a templated way, and this is exactly what students come out with, right? And is there a fault? Absolutely not. Would she be able, to ramp up very quick in a team? I think so. Based on what I see, I think so, right? So yeah, these are kind of my thoughts.
Yeah, totally. I agree with everything you both have said. I think the first thing I would say is 100% in line with what Ludovic just said. The fact that, and John mentioned it too, the fact that it seems to be a fake problem. I think that's problem number one. Like, I bet you that she could take this entire thing and just find an app that needs this sort of feature,
yes.
and like that to me would be so much more interesting, that she then worked it into an existing product that needs this feature and how that works, because then she had to think about their branding, their styles, their spacing, but also how it then fits into that. And so it solves a problem for a company that currently exists. I think that already would have fixed a lot of the problems that we're all like talking about. So there's that. The other piece is like, it's just small stuff, right? It's small stuff that adds up over time. Like the overall margins like change randomly, and the layout changes, and it makes it hard to see certain things. It's hard to scan certain things. Like some of the text is like a little bit confusing depending on when you read it. It focuses on the what and not the why. There's a lot of that stuff. And then there's like some visual design choices later on where it's like, why did you do that? I'm really curious as to why, like, but I completely agree with you, John, as far as like things that could be totally buttoned up. Like that stuff is the easy stuff at the end of the day to improve on. It's much harder to develop the why reflex and like how you go from an amorphous problem to a concrete solution. And so, yeah, well, with all of that out of the way from all three of us, John, what is your rating on this?
Okay. It's contextual. As a junior designer who's looking for like an entry-level job, I think this is good. It communicated some process. It let me understand at least a little bit of how they work, even if I didn't get like the full picture. If this was someone who had a couple years of industry experience already, I'd say it's a little bit meh. Didn't stand out enough because of the reasons for like explaining the whys behind it. But granted that new people don't always have that context, and coming up boot camps are not necessarily set up. I still think that she's in a good position to be able to quickly add some of that and really hit that solid good.
Yeah.
Totally hear you there. What are the
thoughts? I think I would give it a I'm between meh and good, but I think that just because of the fact that she's displaying some quality work, that the portfolio is well thought of, that I checked on mobile, by the way, and it looks great. It's a great mobile experience. I did, and I was like, it's pretty nicely laid out there. It's readable, everything is good, and so I feel like I would say, for the effort, and I can totally tell that for being a beginner, she puts in a lot of work in there. I'll give it a good. And like you said, John, if she had 2 years of experience, I would say wow, this is a bit green, but based on where she's at in her career right now, this is good.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think I'm with you both on giving her a good, but I'm in between a meh and a good. And the reason is because I think that it wouldn't take much for this to become good or solid if she made some pretty big stylistic choices across the app that made it more consistent and easy to read. And if she changed her case study around to fitting into something else, an existing problem, versus, and she could take the work that she already did and apply it to something else like that. I think that would totally help a lot. But yeah, then adding more of the why, stuff like that would really, really help. But yeah, I think overall, Carla, you've done a really solid job. And I think that you can improve it. I think we all think you can improve it. And next time, I highly recommend not including the fact that it was part of a bootcamp project. That's why you did it. Just as a last aside moment, I think you need to say that you want to tackle this problem, just go into it. So.